Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the still alive Mariners.
Still alive Mariners, baby. And boy, do they just love putting us in thrillers.
It's a wild one, but what wasn't a wild one was Sunday's drubbing of the Dolphins by your Seattle Seahawks. And we are going to dive into that today. But before we do that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that is going to call the whole game, kind of like Mike McDonald, that defense was flying and popping, and I'm going to be bringing stuff throughout this entire episode, then buckle up, Buckaroo, because I'm your guy. If you're looking for a guy like that, it's me, your boy Coach Red. You can find me on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that's got a little Ryan Grubb in him, he's going to come out fast and furious, and he'll bring some stuff at the end. The middle, you don't know what you're going to get in this one. I don't know. It's a
That's
mystery.
fair.
And if you like mysteries, well, Scooby Doo gang, you're in luck because we've got Cain here.
Yeah, what's new, Scooby? I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it. Freaking do it.
With this win, the
I'm
Seahawks
fired up
are
about this win.
are at 3 and yo, have you seen the rest of the division? Because they got a 2-game lead over everybody, baby. Let's
Yeah,
go.
and you know what? Come my prediction video, I said this was a loss. But without Tua Tagovailoa, I felt confident. And then you had to bring in Tim Boyle.
Yeah, I mean, this was a rocky game from the jump almost. So Seahawks get the ball and move it down. Blah, 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 blah. Let's restart that.
Go
Let's go by
ahead.
quarter. In the first quarter, the Miami Dolphins score 3, the Seahawks score 17. No scoring in the second and third quarter, and then the Seahawks rounded out with another touchdown for another 7 in the fourth for a final score of 24-3. Breaking it down, Jason Myers leads off the game with a field goal. Sanders has a long attempt and misses, which then turns around into a Charbonnet 4-yard touchdown run later in the quarter. Sanders does capitalize on a turnover and kicks a 23-yard field goal. And then shortly thereafter, Geno Smith throws a 71-yard bomb to DK Metcalf. Then things get quiet until the fourth quarter when Charbonnet runs in a 10-yard touchdown. And that is the scoring, ladies and gents.
Yeah. Miami got just shunted all game long. There was nothing that they could do offensively. They kept Achan in check. Tariq didn't have anything. Jalen Waddle had 2 catches from what I saw. They were just shut down. The offensive line was terrible. You saw QB pressures almost on every play.
A lot of penalties in this game, too, on both sides. A lot of sloppy
Oh,
play. And
oh,
that's
Mike
kind of
McDaniel was freaking out, dude.
Well, that's kind of plagued the Seahawks through their first couple of games. Yes, you have a new staff in place and new system, so you'd expect some, but there's some guys who I think are going to be playing for spots and playing time going forward. But let's hop into some stats while we're at it.
Sorry,
No,
sorry.
I'm aware. I'm watching the same thing you are. Geno Smith clocks in 26 to 34, 289 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
I don't even care about the interceptions. Like they were so fluky. They were
Well,
so fluky. Both of them were. You and I
well,
know it both.
well, on the second one, he was about to get sacked in the end zone for a safety. So he throws it up, bounces off of Sharp's hands and into the defender. And then the other one was off of a hand that was they're fluky. So I'll take it with a grain of salt on that one.
Yeah. Gino had
But
a great day regardless.
then you jump into the rushing attack. Charbonnet last week was a little
Less than ideal.
lackluster,
Less than
but
ideal.
he ramped it up in this game. He had 18 rushes for 91 yards and a touchdown. And first time we get to say his name in the stat sheet, Kenny McIntosh, 3 rushes for 11
Yeah.
yards at the end of the game. He actually had a nice little run earlier in the game that
I
was
saw
called.
that. Yeah.
So
Round of applause for Kenny McIntosh finally making it to the field. Little round of
welcome,
applause.
welcome to the field, big guy. And then the receivers, this one was kind of spread around quite a bit. I'm going to touch on the top four. DK Metcalf clocked in with 4 catches for 104 yards with 1 touchdown. Noah Fant, 6 catches for 60 yards. Tyler Lockett, 5 catches for 46. And JSN clocks in for 3 catches for 39 yards.
Love this game for Noah Fant.
It was a huge bounce back because he had 2 drops the week before. He was
Yeah.
steady, reliable, catch the ball, turn up field, get positive yards, and he averaged 10 yards a catch.
I was genuinely shocked when I saw him actually catch something. But yeah, 60 yards on the day, not bad. Longest was a 16-yard play. So
DK had the bomb. Plus, he also mossed Ramsey in
no, it
the
wasn't.
second drive.
That wasn't Ramsey.
Oh, was it Holland?
It was number 29. And oh boy, dude,
Oh, Kendall Fuller. It was Kendall
when
Fuller.
this offensive line gives Geno time, oh boy, does he put a pretty ball out there. That throw that he gave to DK, where DK just reached around the dude's head and snatched it. Like, so disrespectful, so dirty.
Yeah, I think that was Kendall Fuller, actually.
Oh,
And then Lockett being his usual self, coming up with clutch catches throughout
yep.
this game in times. And then JSN got the ball early, then took a few quarters off, but then had a couple of back-to-back catches later in a drive that I think set up Charbonnet's fourth quarter touchdown. But where this game was really won and lost, you knew in the Pete Carroll era when a backup quarterback was coming into town, you kind of shook in your boots a little bit. I
Yeah.
still remember the Giants with Colt McCoy coming in when they were not a good team and came in and had a little upset victory. But let's highlight some of the guys on defense. Start off with Rayshawn Jenkins leading the team in tackles in this game, 10 tackles, 8 solos. The dude is just a solo tackle machine. And then you got Tyrese Knight, the rookie, getting his first start. No Jerome Baker revenge game in this one. He was out for the day. But Tyrese Knight, 6 tackles, 5 solos, 1 tackle for loss. Big game for Derek Hall, 5 tackles,
Big
1 tackle
game.
for loss, 2 sacks.
Big game.
Terrell Dodson clocks in with 5 tackles, 1 TFL, and a sack. And then Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, Boye Mafe each get a sack a pop. And I think that Reed should have had 2 sacks, but got a sack. There was an illegal chop block called, and McDonald accepted the penalty. I'm not sure why, but it erases the stat off the board for him. So,
Oh well.
I mean, you still clock in with 6 sacks on the day, and we're poised to have 7. They were constantly pressuring. There was not a lot. I think the biggest play in the pass game was a screen pass to Waddle, which he reversed field and got 17 yards.
Yeah.
They held Achane in check. They stuffed Jeff Wilson.
So
And
here they held HM to 30 yards. They held Tariq Hill to 40, D Eskridge to 30, HN to 28, Jalen Waddle to 26.
well, and Eskridge was late game garbage
Right.
time. So
Right. But they held
overall,
their own. It was great to see. Man, Derek Hall. Oh boy, did he just come to play. He was every time I looked, dude, he was in Skylar Thompson's space. And
he did this
that,
most of the game without Leonard Williams.
yeah.
He gets injured early in the game, doesn't come back in, and then you got Byron Murphy after half that gets a little dinged up. Be interesting to see going into the next matchup, which we'll touch on later. But
I mean,
you had
Draymond Jones
you
looked
had
good too.
Mafe and Derek Hall were both questionable coming into this game, and both played at a very high level. And although your defensive line has played well, I would expect or hope that a Chinny Nwosu is out for the next game, or else you should have just put him on IR to miss those 4 games or on the pup list. You could have had another guy rotating in, but it could be a little bit tougher because you're still waiting on K9. I think I saw something that George Fant, even I saw it on ESPN, it said he's on the IR, but I was like, he was questionable to play in this game and got downgraded to out. I don't think he went on the IR. So you've got a couple of guys, Jerome Baker, that are all fighting injuries right now early in the season. And with the Seahawks sitting at 3-0, when you look at the teams that they're playing, and then when you look at the quarterback situations for each of those teams, they're very winnable games. And that's what the Seahawks need to do is win the winnable games, because
Yes.
the winnable games aren't always winnable. You look at the Buccaneers losing to the Broncos and
Get
not
shelled.
showing any life and giving up some points. So week in, week out, you got to go out and play the game. So, Kane, on offense, who you think came out there and played the game the best?
DK Metcalf. Dude, he's such a stud all the time. I mean, back-to-back weeks with a blown open play where he's wide open, just sailing into the end zone. Catches he makes are insane. As we touched on earlier, his moss over Kendall Fuller was dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. The dude played insane. He led the team in stats outside of, Gino, but dude was awesome. He kept the offense alive most of the game. You needed something outside of Tyler Lockett, DK's your guy. So that was my offensive player of the week. Coach Red, who is yours?
Give me Zach Charbonnet in this one
I
because he
like
did
it.
what you needed him to do. He clocked in at about 5 yards a carry, a couple of touchdowns. He contributed it, catching some passes as well. And if Kenneth Walker is going to be out, you need to see more. I would like to see them incorporate McIntosh a little bit more into the game,
Yes.
because I do not want to wear out Charbonnet, because I don't think that Kenny McIntosh is ready to take over RB1 duties. So, got to keep him a
Oh,
little bit fresh, and especially with McIntosh, legitimate. I think he was on the field for like 7 or 8 snaps. So
right. And
I
he got some decent runs.
and the other thing that I like about Charbonnet is his ability to pass protect when he's not going out on those routes.
Yes.
He's good at stymieing guys, and I think that's why he's still getting those third down reps. So big bounce back game for him, even though he did score a touchdown last week. Getting 2 this week and getting that yards per carry up, I think was a big step forward in his progression.
Yes, I agree.
All right,
I
Kane, I
really would
wonder who
like to.
you're going to pick for your defensive player of the game.
It's Derek Hall. Dude was everywhere. The QB pressures were high. 4 QB hits on the day, 2 sacks, and not to mention the sack to end the or the first half, where he just boomsticked him from behind.
Obliterated him, is what I would
Yeah,
have said.
and just laid him out, dude. He was a menace. He's been on our watch list. I talked about it this today at work, and it's like when they drafted him, he was so incredibly raw, and you needed the right coach probably to mold him into something special. And I think Third A is gonna do some special things with him, because what I'm seeing from Derek Hall this year is what you expected out of Darrell Taylor in
Mhm.
the last couple of years. So big ups to Derek Hall on his big week. Continue it up, big dog. You've been amazing. Coach Red, who is your defensive player of the week?
I'm gonna go with Tyrell Dotson.
Oh
Didn't fill
yeah.
up the stat sheet, but he was talking about it post game where when they came out in that certain set, McDonald told him, if you see this, you just go. And he just comes in untouched, squares up Skylar Thompson, and it's like a form tackle. It's what you want to see, and it's completely legal. And he absolutely did the job again. He's the guy, especially with Jerome Baker out, that's in the middle of that defense. And when you look at other veterans that were out, yeah, your secondary's got some dudes, right? Your safeties have been playing bonkers.
Mhm.
I mean, Rayshawn Jenkins clocking with 10 tackles, 8 solos is pretty impressive. But
Mhm.
Dotson's the man with the dot on his helmet. He's putting guys in places, and he's just playing a very solid overall linebacker. And it's what you expected in bringing in. I was shocked that they only gave him a 1 year deal. They would behoove them to try and extend him sooner than later. Maybe some of that money they freed up for DK this year. I know they can't give any more money to him this year, but yeah, you need to get him locked down because he's been a difference maker defensively for
Yes.
this team.
He's been a trendsetter. I mean, I've seen this dude. I mean, he's 25, right? He's
Yeah.
athletic as can be. You know, as we said, Bobby was declining in the pass cut game, wasn't looking great the last couple of years. But man, dude, Terrell Dotson can put pressure on a quarterback and drop back in coverage. It's
Yeah, he's
something that's
phenomenal
rare.
in coverage.
It's rare. You can throw on a tight end and he can match his taste, dude. It's nuts. Just want
Yeah.
to see Jerome Baker on the field a little bit more because I
Well,
liked what I saw week one.
well, maybe he'll be back this week. We'll see how his hamstring's feeling.
Yeah.
What are some areas of improvement that you would like to see from this team?
More like we touched on earlier, more involvement of Kenny McIntosh, right? You have Sharp, who is the
If K
brute.
asterisk if K9's out.
I don't think K9's gonna play. I think you kind of just let him go and get better because after Lions, you have the Giants, then you have the 49ers. I want him more healthy for the 49er game than not. So Kenny McIntosh needs to be on the field just a hair bit more. Like I was saying, I think that Sharp is your bruiser type guy, right? He wants to get contact and wants to lower his shoulders. McIntosh is more of the outside guy, right?
He's
Or
your change of pace back.
yeah, and I think you need a little bit more speed out there, especially with the Lions on prime time. I think this team needs to be more on pace with getting a change of pace because the Lions have a pretty tough defense. Coach Red, what is your area of improvement?
I got two. The first one is just clean up the penalties. There's too many of them. And
Fair?
what I'm going to talk about next is this line needs to start gelling a little bit more. And I think that Anthony Bradford needs to continue losing snaps. He's had 6 penalties through 3 weeks, and a
Not been
couple
very
of his
good.
penalties have, I mean, it was his holding call that caused the safety in week one. It was pressure on him for the second guy busted right through there to tackle us in the backfield for the second safety. And guy got blown up again to put us in the safety position when Gino threw the ball, just trying to throw it away. So with all that being said, I'd like to see Christian Haynes get a little bit more
Yes.
run. And it's
Yes.
tough because I know that he was in the game because they were talking about it, but it's so tough to sit there and see numbers and really focus in on the offensive line game in, game out. It's glaring when something goes askew. So, but overall, I need that offensive line to gel because let's jump in to the Lions. So the Lions are a team that last year were very formidable on offense, and they've got the pieces to be dangerous. They just haven't really been super dangerous offensively this year. When you look at their scores, week one against the Rams, they needed overtime to hit 26 points. Against the Bucks, they scored 16, and then they scored 20 in the win against the Cardinals this weekend. So they're hovering right around 20 points a game, which is right where the Seahawks are. But when you look at these weapons, Goff knows how to hit them. You've got a running back tandem of Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, who is one of the better tandems in the league. And
Yes.
then when you look at their offensive weapons, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and you got to throw in Javonte Williams, not Javonte,
Jameson
Jameson
Williams.
Williams. Yeah, Jameson Williams is leading them in receiving yards right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown's got the catches.
He's
Laporta
burner.
hasn't been super
He's
involved
also
so far.
injured.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of things that are boding well for you. Their defense is solid as well. They're sitting there with 8 sacks on
Good.
the year. 6.5 of them are coming from Aiden Hutchinson. So you need to block that mofo. And they've got
Yeah.
3 picks on the year. And
I
all
mean,
3 picks.
Brian Branch, their safety is an animal.
Oh,
Um,
Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph are the two
yes.
guys on their team that have interceptions. Joseph has two, and you've got one out of Brian Branch. I think that their linebacker room you can attack a little bit. Their outside corners, especially with Terrion Arnold being a little bit banged up, I think you can take advantage. But you're really going to need to be stout on the offensive line in this game. I
Yes.
I was hoping with the extra day of rest that this would really ramp up Kenneth Walker to be available. I'm not looking towards the 49ers. I'm looking for a marquee matchup on Monday night for Kenneth Walker to be back on the field because he's lightning in a bottle. He's electric. He's
That's true.
electric.
Sorry. Sorry.
And you need him on the field.
That is true. I do agree with you. I just want long term success instead of him trying to rush back and get injured more.
Well, obviously, I'm not advocating for him to
I'm
rush back.
aware. I'm aware, but I would love to see K9 because he is a difference maker. He really is. He can lower his shoulder. He doesn't really have to, but he's his own change of pace guy. And it's rare to come by. But if he's not there, Sharps also has to have another big week.
And I'm going to be interested to see how these injuries pan out. Is Leonard Williams going to be available for this game? Is Uchenna Nwosu, Jerome Baker, Byron Murphy, are they going to be available? We already talked about K9. Is George Fant back this week? These are all big looming questions for a team that's really going up against their first true test. The Lions clock in at 201 or 2-1. They're back-to-back participants in the playoffs. They're a very solid team.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the toughest offense that you went up against. And their offensive line is above average, maybe one of the better ones in the league. So
Yes.
can you still create pressures with the Seahawks? I know that they went into the game. I know that the Vikings were right behind them in pressures and they terrorized CJ Stroud, but I got to imagine that the Seahawks are still they're either first or second in the league in quarterback pressures because they're getting after it.
Yeah, I mean the whole defense has been good. There have been small little snippets throughout the game where they're not as good, but overall, they're very solid this year. I mean, as of right now, I would consider them a top 5 defense.
Yeah, but you also have to take into account the
Who
level of
they've
play that they've
played.
went against. So,
Yes, that's
but
true.
statistically, I think they probably do clock in at a top 5 offense. Uh, if the Dolphins eclipsed 200 yards, it was late in the game in garbage time. And I don't think they
Passing
did.
yards, they did not.
No, I'm saying
Overall yards, yes.
barely.
No, off of their rushing yards, they were at like 190 something passing yards between Skylar Thompson and because Skylar Thompson had like 105 and Tim Boyle had like 72. And
Well, it
then
must have been going into the fourth quarter. They had an eclipse 200 yards of total offense.
yeah, because then you had all the running backs and all the rushing yards and stuff. Oh, he just keeps doing it. Oh my goodness. He's a menace. Sorry, wrong sport. Oh boy.
Okay.
Are you trying to stat check me? Because I
Yeah.
had it. I
Yeah.
had it.
I understand that you have a bow, so I don't trust you as far as I can throw you.
That's not very far anymore. But
Okay, because what happens is you take the sack yardage into account as negative plays. They clocked in at 205 total yards of
well,
offense.
well,
Suck it. You're just looking at pure stats. You got to look at the
whatever,
sack
dude.
differentials. So, with all that being said, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be
Yeah.
prime time. So the Seahawks under Pete Carroll usually showed out pretty well in prime time games, and this is a Lions team that you've traditionally done well against, even when they have had good teams. They won the game last year. They won the year prior
And it's
when
been
they met up in the
shootouts.
playoffs. They've matched up with them very well. So I expect Gino to have a big bounce back game. I expect Grubb to really game plan the game a little bit tougher just because of the lull that we saw in the second and third quarters. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this game plays out for the Seahawks. Yep,
That's
pay
true.
attention.
That's true. They really do need to ramp it up. They really do. I think they need to open the playbook a little bit more. Um, they've got a lot of young guys on defense. They really do, and they're fast. They're quick. The safety play is crazy. They really need to do something crazy on offense this week. I hope it's another shootout. I love when they have a shootout. Those are so much fun as long as they win. But it's going to be a tough matchup. And as we said earlier, it's probably the first true test of the year.
Yeah. And we've got a pop quiz for you. Should you follow us on social media? If you answered yes, you're correct. So why don't you go do it, you fool? You could do that by following me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
Find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us, follow us, follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.